Smartphones are constantly picking up new trends, many of which set the standard for our devices. You may think of something as simple as a glass back panel or curved screen in most of today's smartphones as standard, but about a decade ago, having these features on smartphones was practically unheard of. While trends in smartphones are constantly changing how our phones look, feel, and function, there are some out there that are just annoying, unnecessary, or downright weird. Today we're talking about 5 phone trends that would have most likely done better not existing. You're watching The Gizmo Show, and without further ado, this video starts now. The notch all started with the Essential phone, which was released in August of 2017. The notch was then popularized by the iPhone X, which was released a couple months after. But the reason behind the notch goes back to another phone released a couple months earlier, the Samsung Galaxy S8, and the need for a bigger screen coupled with smaller bezels. Now, back in the day, there never really was a need for big screens. Today, however, things are different. Way different. Everyone now wants a bigger screen all of a sudden, and companies are willing to go to any length to give them to us. Mind you, companies can only make those two bezels so small before you run out of space for the front-facing camera. So while some companies offer motorized setups and hole-punch cameras, most companies are going with a simple notch. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the notch. I even have one on my phone now. But when you think about it, this is partly what is meant by the phrase, "there's no innovation with smartphones anymore." Because instead of coming up with something cool and sleek and possibly industry revolutionizing, companies just stick a simple notch up at the top of the screen and call it a day. If you've ever had an older Android phone, you may be familiar with how easy it was to take out the battery in your phone and put it back in. The process of taking out your battery back then would take no longer than 10 seconds. Today, however, taking out the battery on any new smartphone would take an upfront of 10 minutes, and that's only if you spent the money necessary to obtain the materials needed. The truth of the matter is, companies are making it harder for you to fix your phone with little to no technical experience. Before, companies like Samsung would offer spare batteries when you bought your phone. So, if your battery broke for whatever reason, you could just swap it out for another one in a couple seconds and bam, your phone was practically good as new. And you didn't have to spend a dime getting it fixed. But companies have found the profit behind phone repairs. Look at it this way. If somebody can fix their phone at home without spending a cent doing it, why would they spend money getting it fixed elsewhere only to get the same results? It's the same thing with cars. Dealerships make more money fixing cars than actually selling them, even though that is the whole purpose of a dealership in the first place, right? Once you get somebody with a broken car, you can charge them as much as you want to fix their car and give them a whole fairy tale about why the repair costs so much. And if you're lucky enough, they might end up paying. It's the same with phones as well. You can get a random Joe who knows nothing about phones and charge them $400 for something as simple as a failed charge port. There's nothing wrong with more premium glass panels and fixed batteries. I think features like wireless charging are really cool, but when you get rid of so many conveniences just to make room for one convenience, how much are you really improving your phone? Cameras are practically everywhere on smartphones nowadays. In fact, they're so popular that they've kind of become a necessity. I mean, you can't expect to sell a phone to anyone if it doesn't have at least 2 cameras. But it looks like companies are starting to get out of hand. Sure, 1 camera's fine. 2 is great. 3 is okay. 4 is a little crazy. But it doesn't end there. Some companies have gone completely mad and went so far as to add 5 rear-facing cameras on one smartphone. Now, the reasoning behind all the cameras we get on phones is the simple fact that the more of something there is, the better people think it is. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I used to think like this and assume that a phone with a single camera was inferior to a phone with a dual or triple camera. But I've come to learn that a phone can have 50 rear-facing cameras and they could all be just as terrible. But other people haven't, and companies are using this to their advantage and saying, hey look, our phone is better because it has more cameras than it really needs. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, remember that these are phone cameras. They aren't going to film the next Netflix hit or whatever. Phone cameras are improving with every passing year, but they can never meet the quality of real, professional cameras. The story of the headphone jack is a tale well known by many people. Now, I'm not adding it to this list because of the removal of the jack itself, but because of why it was removed. I don't care what you say. Apple removing the headphone jack only to announce wireless headphones at the same time is not a coincidence. It's a money-making tactic. You see, these tech companies aren't here to be your friends. At the end of the day, it's all about money. When companies realized that getting rid of the headphone jack would not only be an opportunity to earn more money, but extend it to another sector of the tech industry, they knew it had to be done and didn't second guess the decision. I mean, if you had to choose between making loads of money and actually spending money to keep a tiny little port on your phones, which would you choose? Companies will say all sorts of things to make it look like they're on your side and that they're for the consumer and a bunch of other nonsense, but you can't forget that these companies need money. They don't sell phones because it's a hobby or they like doing it in their free time. They sell phones because they need a means of making money. That's the sole reason behind the removal of this tiny little port. It's not because of space or battery life, it's because of money. What's the best phone you can think of? The Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus? The iPhone 11 Pro Max? What about the Huawei Mate 30 Pro? All of these phones are great, but what they have in common is what matters: price. All of the phones mentioned here are over $1,000. Now, paying $1,000 for anything is a lot, but paying that much for a smartphone is just too much. Now, phones are constantly improving. Gone are the days where the best phone you could get looked like this. Phones are becoming computers, workstations, gaming devices, film shooters, anything you could possibly imagine. But let's not forget, these are still cell phones and should be priced as such. Companies have, in the past, gotten away with overpricing phones. Apple sold the iPhone X for $1,000 at its launch, which was more than 3 times its actual worth. And guess what happened next? Apple became the first trillion-dollar company. Now, that's a little too coincidental if you ask me. Today, however, selling an expensive phone isn't as easy as it used to be. In fact, the smartphone industry as a whole is failing due to the lack of affordable phones on the market. I personally haven't a clue where expensive pricing came from and why companies charge so much for their phones nowadays, and you probably feel the same way too. What is certain for sure is that as long as smartphone prices rise, the actual number of smartphones sold will go down. And until companies learn this, things aren't going to get much better. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Really appreciate that. If you want to see more tech videos like this, the sub button will always be there. Until next time, this has been The Gizmo Show. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.